Okay guys, here we are with the season 3 episode 1 premiere of Genndy Tarkovsky's Primal. Now this episode is entitled Vengeance of Death, and that title is very apropos to the episode, but also the entire series. But I also want to make mention that this will be my first time making a video on Primal, and I kind of feel bad starting this late at what is probably going to be the last season of the entire show. But you know what they say, better late than never. And there's no other episode I can think of that can start off my series of videos on this show with as much as a bang as this episode came in. And this episode came in swinging. I mean, if you watch the promotional material for Primal Season 3, then you kind of knew that Spear was going to be brought back to life, sort of, as this undead creature, which I want to make mention of the fact that it's so incredibly sad. It's so sad for me to watch Spear as this undead, lifeless husk. And throughout this episode, we see him kind of regain more of his memories, but as this creature that is basically being used to commit these violent acts by this sorcerer, this witch doctor, who wants to get revenge. In the beginning of the episode, we see that this sorcerer goes to Spear's final resting place and brings him back to life in order to fight off these other people that did him wrong and murdered his people. And that's kind of like the entire premise of Primal as a whole, this non-stop cycle of revenge and the violence that comes with that, whether it be violence stemming from trying to protect oneself or violence stemming from someone trying to survive. It's just the guttural, primal nature of living things. And throughout the show, we've seen the worst of humanity. And this episode was no different. Seeing Spear just wreck everything and the violence. I mean, I think one of the biggest draws to Primal for a lot of people is the level of gore and the fact that Genndy and everyone that works on the show, they're obviously not afraid to go there. I mean, throughout the show, we've seen some crazy moments. We've seen some crazy fights. We've seen blood splatter all over the place. We've seen body parts getting torn apart. We've seen kids being killed. And this episode kind of kept up that level of gore. And they obviously wanted to go all out for the season premiere because we had Spear just wrecking people. I mean, ripping limbs. At one point, we had a character actually slice undead Spear in the head to reveal his brain, and he had no reaction at all. Which again goes back to how I was saying that it just feels sad to see him like this character that we've watched for 2 seasons be like the best of what humanity can offer. Being so wholesome and caring and kind and compassionate, just being a good person, and everything he did for Mira and everything he did for Fang, and even the little moments, like those little somber moments where he's just like eating and he has a nice smile on his face. You know, Spear is a good guy. And obviously at the end of season 2, Spear unfortunately was killed. And that was a sad moment, but for me, I think just seeing him as this zombie is just kind of like piling on to the fans. Like, man, this is just. But again, I think it does fit the nature of this series, of the most vile things, the most basis of evil in humanity being committed. I mean, to think that in order to get revenge on someone who did you wrong, you would go to someone's grave to bring them back to life, but not really back to life, just make them this mindless husk to do your bidding without any regard for how they might feel or what that might do to them. It's sad. But on a more positive note, this episode kept up the series' amazing use of animation and music and ambiance and sound to create something that's so engaging, that's so interesting to watch. And this episode really was engaging and interesting to watch. I mean, Primal is obviously a show, if you've seen it, which I assume you have seen it if you're watching this video. It's a show that heavily relies on the animation and the sound to keep the viewer engaged. And when I say the sound, I mean the music and, you know, the ambient noise, because there's very little to no voice acting, besides some grunts and some roars and a mirror from time to time. But mostly the show really relies on us as a viewer to just let our senses, our other senses, do the work for us. And it feels so apropos because the series is called Primal, and it does take place in a more primal time in humanity's history. So in order to like experience the show, you really do have to watch it with your own eyes. You really do have to be in the moment and experience it, because you're not going to have characters going on these long monologues explaining what's going to happen or what happened in order for this to happen. You're not going to get any of that. You really do have to sit down and pay attention to what you see. And to me, it reminds me of a great actor in a live action movie. A great actor can emote and make you feel what's going on in a scene with just their facial expressions, their eyes, the way they twitch their lips, just their presence alone can keep you engaged into whether it be a movie or a TV show or even a music video. And what Genndy and the team behind Primal was able to do was create a product, create this show that's beautifully animated, has interesting character designs, and is able to keep us engaged with no dialogue, which again, that's extremely hard to do in my opinion when it comes to animated series. It's hard to do and be popular, and Primal's pretty popular, so it goes to show you how great Genndy is. And obviously he's one of the most popular, most successful cartoon creators, especially for Cartoon Network and Adult Swim. Over the past like 30 years he's been doing this thing. Now going back to this actual episode, we see that Spear kind of runs into these people that at first I thought they might have been kind of zombies like him, and there was like this whole like civilization of zombies. But then I quickly realized that these people look more like their own community of sick people that have maybe leprosy. And you can let me know in the comments what you thought of that. Did you get that same vibe as me? But yeah, I do feel like this was like a community of sick people just trying to live. Maybe they have leprosy and they have other people trying to take advantage of that, because again, this is Primal, so the weak get stomped on by the quote-unquote stronger. But after Spear defends this little village, this little community, he starts to get even more memories back, and he hears Fang's roar in his mind. He hears her roar, and then he just belts out this guttural scream, this guttural roar himself. And it looks like he's going out now to go find Fang. And that has also been one of my favorite aspects of this show. If you guys know me, if you watch my videos, you know how much characters and character dynamics matter to me. And this show perfectly built up this relationship between Fang and Spear. And they did it with no dialogue and two different creatures. And Spear at one point was a human and Fang is obviously a dinosaur. But their relationship, just the way the show built it up, it hits you in the feels. It really gets you. And it reminds me of like a Finn and Jake or a Fiona and Cake type of relationship where it really does resonate with you. And when they're sad, you feel sad. When they're fighting, you kind of feel anxious. You know, their relationship is beautiful. And to see an undead Spear think of Fang, that's how much Fang meant to him. That's how much she was involved in his life and his journeys at a certain point, that she's one of the first creatures that he wants to go find. Obviously, he probably wants to find Mira. I don't think he knows that he has a daughter with Mira. That'll be interesting to see. I mean, this episode set up so much, but we have to obviously wait and see what happens next in terms of how Spear will find Fang and how Spear will discover he has a daughter and how that whole relationship between him and Mira will work. And that's assuming that this is even the same timeline, because I do also want to mention something. Maybe this is a little bit of a theory. Maybe this is actually confirmed. Maybe most people know this, but I do feel like, in my opinion, this takes place way in the future. And unfortunately, Fang and Mira might not even be alive. Maybe even his daughter might not even be alive, because this might take place way into the future, which would be even more heartbreaking. Like, not only does Spear have to suffer this incredibly gory, violent death, but he has a daughter that he's never met, and he gets brought back to life in a world where he's never even going to be able to see his family. He's not going to be able to see Fang or Mira or his daughter again, because he's this zombie from the future, or brought back in the future. And even if he did meet his daughter again or Mira, it's like, how does he approach them in this disgusting, and I say disgusting, and with all due respect, but I mean, he's a walking corpse. But it's going to be very interesting to see where the show goes, where the show takes this whole storyline with Spear being the zombie. Obviously, I've seen a lot of promotional material, so I know that the violence just gets amped up even more. The fights are going to be crazy. This season's going to be action-packed. And like I said, I do think this is going to be the last season of the show. So come along with me on this journey of reviewing every episode of Season 3 of Primal, and we'll also sprinkle in some more theories and some discussions here and there so we can get the conversation going. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed Season 3 premiere of Primal, and I hope you guys come back. Subscribe for more videos and like this video if you enjoyed the video. Comment below your thoughts. Take care, guys.